Today, I'm going to explore the third decan of Aries, Aries 3. And I'm excited because we've done Aries 1 and Aries 2 already. And there's a progression of the energy in a sign. And so by going through that last decan, we really get to see a deeper meaning of Aries and how it moves and how it's got a different quality at the beginning of the sign as opposed to the end of the sign. There's a lot to unpack. I'll describe it in the upcoming video. If you enjoy, like and subscribe. It helps folks find me. So, Aries 3, we're going to talk today first about the different planets that rule this decan and maybe compare it to the planets that rule the other two decans. We'll do a little comparison right off the bat to Aries 1 and Aries 2. And at the same time, I'll bring in the tarot card, Four of Wands, that's associated with this third decan. And again, compare it to the tarot cards associated with the other two decans of Aries, really flesh out the meaning of this sign for y'all. So, Aries 3 is super interesting. Aries 1, we talked about, is that there's two rulers to each decan of the zodiac. And for Aries 1, it's Mars and Mars under both systems. Mars is the god of war, has to do with breaking into the world. Aries 1 is very much the beginning of the zodiac. It's about expressing yourself in the world, trying to sort of fight your way into existence. Aries 2, in contrast, the two rulers are under both systems are the sun and the sun. And if we think about the sun, it has this really consistent quality, right? So there's a presence to the sun, a vibrancy, a shining your light in the world. And that's the vibe of the second decan of Aries. It can have to do with leaders and people that have entered the world and are occupying it and are connected to spirit in a way where they can stand in their own integrity and sort of be the ruler of their own destiny. And then we have Aries 3. And the rulers under two different systems are Venus, the goddess of love, beauty, harmony, but also the goddess of justice, and Jupiter, the god of optimism, expansion, um, abundance. And so we put the vibes of those two planets together, and we're going to find that in this third decan of Aries, we encounter people who have the Aries 3 as their rising sign as people who tend to be quite charismatic. They have this capacity, the Venusian quality of who they are, the desire for relatedness, for bringing people together, can make them people who are good at forming groups and building something in the world. We'll talk about the building piece when we get to the tarot card. And then we bring in Jupiter, this planet of optimism and abundance. And when we pair him with Mars, who rules Aries, we get whenever Jupiter and Mars are together in a chart, which is what we have with the third decan of Aries, because Mars is the main ruler of the sign, and Jupiter is one of the co-rulers, right? So Jupiter, this planet of optimism and abundance and expansion, when he's with Mars, can bring um, bravery in an abundant way. It can bring the capacity to move out into the world in an optimistic fashion. Jupiter can also have to do with ideology. Long story, but Jupiter is the rules this decan in part because he's associated with Sagittarius. So, and so we can think about also what would Sagittarius, the sign, look like in the sign of Aries? And what you get with Sagittarius sometimes is people who have the big idea that they want to bring out into the world, an optimistic quality, but also a little bit of a somebody who is going to, like Che Guevara, I believe, had his son here, right? And he had a big idea about liberating the world, right? And so, anyway, I'll move on from there. And I've got a couple of examples of rising sign folks that'll make more sense when we get to that point. Okay, so those are the planets that rule the third decan of Aries. Mars is the ruler of Aries, and then we got Jupiter and Venus, and you put all that energy together, and that's the vibe of the third decan. And we can really see that in the tarot cards that are associated. So this is going to be a little unpacking, not just of the tarot cards, but also some esoteric ideas associated with the tarot card, right? So we have the Four of Wands is the ruler, excuse me, is the tarot card associated with the third decan of Aries. And in it, we see people celebrating a wedding. That is a chuppah there. So a wedding tent. And you can see they're all excited and happy and celebrating, right, and creating something. So first, I'm going to point out how different this Four of Wands is from the Two of Wands and the Three of Wands that rule the first two decans of Aries. So we can really get the sense of the unfolding of the energy. The Two of Wands here is we see Alexander the Great with the world in his hands, separated from the world. There's this idea with the Two of Wands of breaking into the world, perhaps wanting to conquer it. Another idea that I presented in the first video is more insisting on one's existence as part of the energy of the Two of Wands because it is the very beginning of the zodiac. So we see here the Wands fiery energy of starting something new and wanting to break into the world with the Two of Wands. And then in the Three of Wands, which is the second decan of Aries or Aries II, we see Alexander the Great, but now he's entered that space. In the first video, excuse me, in the first card, Alexander was holding the world in his hands. Now he's entered the space, right? Three-dimensionality. And so he's in his being, in his existence, in his domain, the king or queen. And so that's that quality of the sun decan of Aries. But now when we get to the third decan, it's like a totally different vibe. There's no warrior, there's no conquering, there's celebration. And the four or fours, from numerology as well as in the Kabbalah, have to do with fixity, something that's fixed, a structure that has been built and entering into material form. So whereas before with the two and the three, we had the energy of fire, um, putting itself into the world and occupying space. Now we have someone who, or an energy that's holding that fire energy. It's containing it to create something in the world that's solid, to create something in form. And here we can see, for example, a marriage has been created, and marriage contains the energy of that partnership, which is also kind of interesting given the fact that Venus is one of the co-rulers of the decan, along with Jupiter. We can imagine Venus and Jupiter together in harmony and happiness and abundance and optimism, right? You can really see that energy in this Four of Wands. So, people with their rising sign in the third decan of Aries can tend to have some of that, the combination of Mars, Jupiter, and Venus energy, and a celebration, a desire to create something beautiful in the world for people to share. I have a couple of examples. One is the actor and director Ron Howard. Give me one sec. I'm just going to get a couple notes about Ron. If you remember Ron Howard, he was Opie Taylor on the Andy Griffith Show. And then he was, I can't remember his name, but he was in Happy Days, right? But eventually he went on to become a director. And the films that he directed all had a very, or many of them had a very positive, inspirational quality, bringing forth that Jupiterian energy. They also tended to have a quality of caring about human relationship, that Venusian quality. And also, as an Aries rising, Aries is a fire sign that's about starting things. It's a cardinal sign. So he also had the Mars ambition to actually create all that and achieve something beautiful in the world. So we can think of the Venus part of who Ron Howard is as making him an artist as well as a collaborator, right? Because Venus is about relationships, but she's also about beauty and harmony. And so we get the real balanced nature again of that Four of Wands, excuse me. You see the harmony and beauty in this card as well, right? And then When we bring in Jupiter, you get the optimist and the storyteller, which is very much what Ron Howard was. Um, and let me just see 1 second. Oh, yeah. So there's a quality of the storytelling he did that is very Jupiterian, sort of the story of triumph over adversity and the sense of hope and inspiration. For example, the movie Apollo 13 is one example. And then he did Parenthood, which was very much a relational Venusian type of movie. But again, to accomplish all that, he had to have that Mars energy, right? And so another person who has Aries 3, and again, forgive me, my notes are a little far away, is Shaquille O'Neal, the basketball player, but not just a basketball player, right? Also a commentator with this really great sense of humor, and he did commercials and he did music. He did some rap, I believe, as well. And so there again you get this Venusian quality, but he's also very much known for the Jupiterian part of who he is, which his capacity to work with teammates, to build a team, to build a group of people, an optimist as well as a visionary. On top of that, a very generous philanthropist. He's donated millions of dollars to charities and helping young athletes. And so you can really feel that Jupiterian, Jupiter, the planet, and when somebody has a lot of Jupiter in their chart, they tend to not just be optimistic, but they also tend to share with other people the bounty. They tend to be teachers and mentors, and you really see that in Shaquille's work in philanthropy as well. And then, of course, we have his Mars energy. He was an athlete, right? And so Aries rising folks sometimes can be a little bit more athletic. Anybody who has Aries rising or Mars at the angles, right? That can be part of that quality. So, one quick check to make sure I haven't missed anything, but I think I pretty much hit it. I think it's fascinating once again, maybe just to think, I'm going to double back and think about the development of Aries energy over time because it is such a contrast. And this is one of the ways, if you want to understand yourself or someone else a little bit better who has an Aries rising, really knowing which of the 10 degrees your rising sign is might give you a little bit more insight into yourself or to them, right? So if you are somebody with an Aries rising in the first decan, you're going to have that cardinal, I want to start things kind of energy, but it's going to be more individual. It's going to be like much more like I have to break into the world. If you have the second decan of Aries energy, it's got a little bit of the quality of Leo, the sun, where it's I want to occupy space and lead other folks, the relationality piece to be the center, right? There's a Leo quality to the middle decan of Aries. But then we get to the third decan of Aries, and it has more of that Sagittarius fire quality with that Jupiter energy as well as the Venus. And so much more of a quality of being about something that's bigger than you as an individual or in a group, but something about wanting to build something for the world that lasts, to occupy space in a way where you're creating something for the world. So the creation part and the occupying form and materializing is all that four energy because fours are always about spirit coming into form. So I hope that was helpful. If you enjoyed, like and subscribe. And in about 10 days, I'll be doing the first decan of Taurus. Thanks.